The next speaker is Dr. Peter Lawrence from the University of Greenwich here, where we are. He is the principal software engineer for the EXODUS suite of software and has been with the Fire Safety Engineering Group since '94. He has spent over 9 years in the field of human egress and circulation model development and has been the chief software designer and programmer of several EXODUS programs. His main areas of research are on the development of new and innovative computer algorithms for the implementation of human behavior, spatial awareness, movement and vision. In addition to this, he is heavily involved in practical and commercial applications of these models. His talk will be on simulating ship evacuation under fire conditions. Please, Peter Lawrence.
Could you get rid of it? Yeah. Just a minute, we're just the computer. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Is it working? We just changed the battery. So, first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge my co-workers who worked together. We all worked together on this project. Okay. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the following sponsors for this project, which is the EU Projects of Safety First and Fire Exit. Basically, the contents of my presentation today is basically I'm going to give a brief introduction to the IMO regulations concerning the use of maritime EXODUS software, an outline of maritime EXODUS software. Then I'm going to demonstrate the use of maritime EXODUS applied to an IMO scenario. I will then demonstrate the interface of maritime EXODUS with SmartFire, and I will then be rerunning the scenario again with a fire hazard. Now, why use a computer-based evacuation model? First of all, it helps improve safer ship design, since we can incorporate evacuation analysis in the design phase. Safer and more rigorous acceptance criteria, since a larger number of trials can be conducted. For example, normally only one evacuation of a ship is carried out, and this is generally due to cost and the danger of injuries. Models can address other issues such as optimization of passengers, movement, and accident investigation. Most important of all, these things are not relevant just to new build, but are also useful in understanding issues with existing vessels. Right, now for what the regulations require. IMO Safety Council regulations require 4 benchmark scenarios, 2 days and 2 nights. There are 2 approaches, either the simplified or the advanced method. We will be looking at the advanced method since this is where maritime EXODUS fits in. In the advanced method, passengers and crew respond in an individual basis and evacuate via main routes. Ship's motion, impacts, signage, smoke, etc. is accounted for in a safety factor, and awareness times and embarkation times must be included in the simulation results. Let's look at the advanced method in a little bit more detail. Population starting locations are stipulated. It's required 50 runs of each simulation, and it's a 95 percentile value that is of interest. Performance levels are specified. For example, a free-zone ship, mustering time should be less than 40 minutes. Also, a safety margin of 600 seconds should be added to account for any problems such as fire, smoke, flooding, etc. Also, the regulations for the maximum congestion should be less than 10% of the complete time of evacuation. So here we will be using maritime EXODUS to determine whether a ship meets the IMO night scenario regulations, whether a vessel, also will be considered, well, we'll briefly examine the effects of trim, and then we'll briefly examine a fire and smoke scenario. First of all, I'm going to give a quick outline of what maritime EXODUS is. You've probably seen this slide before. Basically, EXODUS is a stochastic rule-based adapted decision-making simulation package which considers people, fire, and people structure interaction. It has 5 key interactive submodels, of which the behavior model is the most complicated. Maritime EXODUS is one of many packages produced by the Fire Safety Engineering Group, and we have a number of people moving packages. which have been used on many major projects, for example, the A380 and the Sydney Olympic Stadium. maritimeEXODUS incorporates a lot of human performance data relating to ships, e.g. heel and trim. Here we have an example of data being collected for a watertight door at various angles, and here we have a 60-degree stair or incline ladder data being collected. maritimeEXODUS includes all the requirements and goes beyond the requirements for the IMO regulations. It includes impact of heel and trim, life jacket collection, abandonments phase, and it also includes the more advanced stuff like the impact of fire, as well as non-evacuation procedures such as boarding. Also, we're still developing this package further and have plans to include the impact of motion, smoke orientation, and heel and trim effects on passenger behaviour. Now for the demonstration. Here we will have a ship with 10 decks, 3 zones. Only the top 5 decks are occupied. There are 650 passengers on these ships, on these decks. We will be considering 4 scenarios. Basically the standard night case with response times between 7 and 13 minutes. People will don their life vests in their cabins and then muster. We will then repeat this simulation for 10 and 20 degrees of heel, and then finally look at the case with fire. The last 2 cases for the heel and fire actually go beyond the requirements that are required by the IMO regulations and would normally be accounted for in a safety factor. So here we have the layout of the top 5 decks of the ships, the various fire zones, and the evacuation routes. Deck 8 is the muster deck. Here we have the simulation in EXODUS. People start in their cabins. They don their life jackets on. They put their life jackets on in their cabins, and then they get these yellow vests. They then start to make their way up the stairs to the muster deck on deck 8. There's also people making their way down from the upper decks to the muster deck. And here we have a muster in on deck 8. Now let's have a quick look at the results. This is the graph of 50 runs. And what's the range? Well, we've got a range of